Once they were up there, they became part of a regular space station crew. So basically, they were integrated into the space station. They've been doing normal duties like experiments and spacewalks. And Sonny Williams has actually been commanding the space station for the last few months. And finally, the spacecraft going up today is not a rescue capsule. In fact, the capsule that the crew's going to take home is the same one the last crew came up on, and it's been up there since September of last year. So they could have come home at any point if they really needed to.
NPR science correspondent Jeff Brumfield, thanks.
Thank you.
This is Morning Edition from NPR News. I'm A. Martinez.
And I'm Michelle Martin.
Marketplace Morning Report is coming up next, and then in 10 minutes at 9 o'clock, it's the BBC NewsHour on WNYC. Let's check in with London and see what they're working on. Hello, London.
Good morning, WNYC. I'm James Menendez. Today on NewsHour, how will Russia respond after Ukraine agrees to an American proposal for a 30-day ceasefire? We'll hear from Moscow. Also, how protected Amazon forests are being cut down for the next UN Climate Summit. That's BBC NewsHour at 9 on WNYC.
45 and partly sunny, then that's right now, then partly sunny and 53 for a high today. Tomorrow, partly sunny and near 50, and then on Friday, partly sunny and mid 50, so some cooler temperatures.
Support for WNYC comes from Art Yard, a contemporary art center in Frenchtown, New Jersey. Paintings exploring the politics of the lawn by Alex Callender, and works by 3 ceramic artists pushing the boundaries of clay now on view. Info at artyard.org.
WNYC is partnering with The Moth to help celebrate our 100th anniversary with an unforgettable evening of stories. I'm Allison Stewart, inviting you to join me for Only in New York at the NYU Skirball Center. Celebrate the city and a century of broadcasting with a diverse group of storytellers who share tales about all 5 boroughs. March 14th at 7:30. Tickets at wnyc.org/events.
Steel and aluminum just got a lot more expensive.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Bitwarden Password Manager, helping to extend spring cleaning to online security with strong and unique passwords for every account at bitwarden.com.
From Marketplace, I'm Sabri Benishore, in for David Brancaccio. It's not just tariffs on steel and aluminum that went into effect today. It's tariffs on hundreds of products made from those metals. Air conditioner parts, aircraft parts, kitchen appliances, nuts and bolts, bulldozer blades. Marketplace's Nova Safo is here with the details. Hi, Nova.
Good morning, Sabri.
So technically, we actually already had some steel and aluminum tariffs in place. This is an expansion of them. Can you break that down for us?
That's right. These tariffs date back to the first Trump administration, steel and aluminum tariffs, but there were a lot of exemptions along the way. For example, some countries like Japan had quotas with which they could export to the U.S. a certain amount of product before the higher tariffs kicked in. Now, that's all gone now. All of those derivative products also were excluded before. Now they're facing import levies. So all of this is a big change. Analysis from the Boston Consulting Group found that the new tariff rules more than double the amount of steel imports alone, Sabri, which are facing new import taxes.
And what should we expect the consequences of this to be?
Well, President Trump says he's seeking to bring more manufacturing to the U.S. to expand steel and aluminum factories, but also others, such as in auto manufacturing. That Boston Consulting Group analysis I mentioned does find that these tariffs are going to impact the manufacturing and construction industries the most. Now, interestingly, when it comes to the broader economy, S&P Global predicts that the impacts just from these specific tariffs will be relatively negligible on prices overall, but a very significant impact on specific industries like automakers. A big caveat in all of this is that analysts have not yet considered the impacts of retaliatory tariffs from other countries, and the EU has already announced that they will impose some.
All right, Marketplace's Nova Safo, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Inflation in the U.S. in February cooled down quite a bit. The Consumer Price Index just dropped. It's a break we really needed. 2.8% yearly inflation. It's not as low as we'd like it to be, but it's better than the month before. Marketplace's Nancy Marshall-Genzer has more.
Inflation rose more slowly last month. The Consumer Price Index was up 0.2% in February, a bit cooler than the 0.5% rise in January. Almost half the CPI increase was due to the cost of shelter. Used car prices were also up. Prices for meat, poultry, fish, and eggs were up more than 1.5% in February. That was mostly driven by the soaring cost of eggs. S&P Global economists say if President Trump's tariffs are fully implemented, they'll increase U.S. inflation by 0.5 to nearly 0.75 of a percentage point, with the CPI hovering around 3% through 2025, well above the Federal Reserve's inflation target of 2%. The Fed starts its next meeting on interest rates this Tuesday. With inflation so far above its target, Bank of America sees little reason for an interest rate cut. In fact, B of A expects the Fed to stay on hold through the end of next year. I'm Nancy Marshall-Genzer for Marketplace.
All right, let's do the numbers. Dow, S&P, and NASDAQ futures are all up in the 0.6 to 1.4% range, with the Dow futures up 227 points. The yield on the 10-year Treasury is 4.33%.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Progressive Insurance. On the road and at home, customers can simplify their insurance needs and protect what's important by bundling home and auto with Progressive Insurance. Learn more about Progressive and bundling at Progressive.com. And by Commvault. When companies face ransomware and outages, they can recover data and business in just minutes with Commvault.
Now, something from the file of unintended consequences. Slashing government jobs and spending has slashed government travel, and that is showing up in demand for flights. Delta, American, Southwest, United have all cut their first quarter growth forecasts or warned demand is slowing. A decline in government travel is just one reason. The big one, of course, is that consumers and businesses have been getting more anxious about the direction of the economy. This downturn comes 5 years to the week after the official start of the COVID-19 pandemic, when airlines faced a truly existential threat. This week, we're looking at how various industries have recovered from the economic shock of pandemic times and how they've been changed by it. Marketplace's Daniel Ackerman has this.
February 2020 was a pretty good time for airlines, says industry consultant Robert Mann.
The irony was early February was record traffic, record revenue.
Of course, that wouldn't last. By April, there were days when TSA screened fewer than 90,000 travelers, says Henry Hardevelt of Atmosphere Research.
We hadn't seen a number that low in the United States since the 1950s.
With no passengers, airlines cut staff and parked their unused airplanes out in the desert. It took more than $50 billion in government support to keep airlines from going bankrupt. But then, in the middle of 2021,
as more people were vaccinated, as restrictions started to ease, we saw domestic and international travel explode, so-called revenge travel.
People wanted to get back out there and see their friends and family, says Nicholas Rupp, an economics professor at East Carolina University.
They've gotten stimulus checks, so they've got money to spend. They're ready to travel. So it was leisure travelers that first brought back the airlines.
Business travel didn't see the same rebound. Managers learned Zoom could do the trick just fine. Consultant Robert Mann says that hurt routes to and from smaller cities, where previously just a handful of business travelers could make it profitable to fly a 50-seat airplane.
They were subsidized by the 5 or 6 very high-fare business travelers who were flying in those markets. And if that type of demand doesn't exist anymore, then the cross-subsidy doesn't exist and the service will be eliminated.
Mann says some of those routes may never return, even with business travel picking up lately. The pandemic has also had a lasting impact on aircraft supply chains, says Henry Hardevelt of Atmosphere Research. Manufacturers like Boeing and Airbus are still behind on deliveries of new planes.
So a key lesson here is when you're faced with a crisis, stay away from knee-jerk reactions. There are airlines that wish they hadn't gotten rid of airplanes because when demand hit, they could have used those planes.
Airlines may soon get a chance to apply some of the lessons they learned back then. This week, Delta, American, United, and Southwest all slashed their revenue forecasts as consumer sentiment runs into turbulence. I'm Daniel Ackerman for Marketplace.
And in New York, I'm Sabri Ben-Achour with the Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American Public Media.